So this is something I talk about all the time. Why do American conservatives spend so much time talking about social issues? Culture wars. It changes every other week. Right now, it's obviously trans people, but the question is why? To put it briefly, in my opinion, it's because if they talked about anything else, namely, say, things that actually have a material effect on your day-to-day life, it would become clear that they have nothing positive or useful to say on those topics. You don't have adequate healthcare. You don't have adequate housing. You can't afford to go to college. You're not paid enough. These are the real things affecting Americans, not the existence of trans people. Billionaires hoarding all of our society's wealth is the real problem that has a real tangible effect on your ability to live a safe, comfortable, fulfilling life, not the existence of trans people. Follow the money. Who funds these conservative politicians through legal bribery? Who funds these conservative media outlets? The very same people who would be affected by these solutions to the real problems that you're facing. So they just distract you with trans people, gay people, immigrants, whatever. So I'm curious what Jon Stewart has to say about this. He's saying it's because they are all out of ideas, but let's see what he means.
When you watch Republicans campaign against Democrats, they don't campaign much on what they used to, which was, the Democrats were big spenders or whatever, it's all.
That's a good point. Already right off the bat. And part of it is because the Republicans are also big spenders. You can't make that argument anymore that the Republican Party is somehow more fiscally conservative than Democrats. That is just not the case anymore. Not that it's really ever been the case, period.
About critical race theory,
Sure.
And it's all this cancel culture stuff.
Yes, the biggest problem.
Why does it work, and what should Democrats do? Are they falling for a bait in doing this, in talking about these issues?
I don't know if they're falling for a bait, but I think, again, I don't even think half of the Republicans that do it even mean it.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Half. None of these wealthy-ass Republicans in power in the media give one single fuck about trans people. That's just the truth. Maybe Matt Walsh, because he is a genuinely sickening, horrific human being. But the overwhelming majority of these people do not give a single shit. Again, it is 100% an obvious distraction from the real issues that we are facing. Issues that can only be solved by lightly tapping on the pocketbook of the billionaires and millionaires who fund these institutions, who fund these politicians.
They think it's
They think it
appeal to
works.
emotion.
Right.
What would you do if you were out of governing ideas? If you didn't know how to govern a country of this magnitude and a country of this diversity, and you basically are running on government is broken, and then when you get in office, you have to be terrible to prove the original premise, it must be great to be able to do that. This government doesn't work, and by me not funding it and breaking it, see what I told you? Keep me in power. If you don't have ideas on governing, what do? Well, you do the purposeful distortion field that they create.
But it works,
and by the way,
right? Because it's emotional.
Does it work?
I don't know.
Who's the president?
Well, but
it doesn't necessarily work. It gets people upset. It gets them angry. It makes them fearful about threats and hyperbole, and makes them afraid of things that can't even really be defined, meanwhile ignoring so many issues that
right, it's a kind of real appeal to a base that you stoke up.
Right.
When Sarah Huckabee Sanders did the response to the State of the Union, I noticed she kept talking about CRT. She didn't even bother to spell it out. Because most people, I would assume most average Americans don't know what it means.
The guy who came up with that's purposeful. His plan is make everything CRT. And by the way, all this diversity initiatives and CRT and all those other things are only there because we refuse to actually fix the real problem.
Well, he's 100% correct, but that's like a 400 level analysis, 101, 200, 300, 400. That's like senior year level analysis of the issues here. That is not going to resonate with the vast majority of Americans, what he just talked about here. But that is a excellent I would say, high-level point, but that explanation is not going to work on the, like I said, vast majority of Americans.
Diversity in equity initiatives are a salve. They're to pacify and mollify, because we won't actually do the real thing. We won't.
It's true. 100% true. I haven't watched Jon Stewart since The Daily Show. I haven't really watched much of his new Apple TV show. But that is a very, very good point. That, like, again, like that's like the meta point, you know, like that's like when you zoom out, that's really what's going on. And I love that he's bringing it up. We're not there yet. The vast majority of Americans, even liberals and progressives, aren't quite there yet. But these are great points.
Don't actually dismantle the vestiges of all the systemic racism and all the systemic classism and all the systemic gender issues. We won't actually dismantle that. But what we will do is, you can have an office in the building, and every few months, we're going to have to sit and listen to you talk for like an hour. And so we're good, right? Like, it's a country that won't face the I'll explain it like the NFL, right?
Let's
go. The Rooney Rule in the NFL is, because there are so few African.
So the Rooney Rule, yeah, from what I'm going to try and remember it, it has to do with hiring minority coaches. So you need to, like, at least interview some amount of minority coaches for any given open coaching position, I think. He'll probably explain it correctly. But it is, affirmative action adjacent, I guess, sort of.
American coaches. You have to at least interview like one of them. So that's the rule now. It's the thing you put in place instead of looking at the owner's box and realizing, oh, right, that's just the legacy of the economic segregation that's been.
Dude, he is so fucking killing it right now. I love this video so far. Yes, I can't say it enough. He is 100% right. Things like affirmative action, the Rooney Rule, things like that are like tiny band-aids on the like gushing wound of generations, centuries of racism, trauma, that have not been addressed yet properly. He is absolutely killing it here.
Been in our country since its founding, so we're never going to deal with that. So here's what we are going to do. A diversity and equity initiative, we're going to have to talk to one black guy. So are we good? I think we're good. But that's what I'm trying to say is, the thing that they're pointing at is the thing that's in place because we won't do the actual thing.
He's kind of describing the problem with what liberals are doing. Like, it's the liberals who are doing the affirmative action and whatnot, while not really taking the actual steps we need to address the real systemic, issues that create these situations. Meanwhile, you have liberals and then you have conservatives who are not doing anything, and in fact are trying to make things worse for these marginalized people.
Like somebody who has a lot of anger and a lot of rage, and yet you're very funny, and like how do you keep all that together? Like there's a part of you that's very optimistic.
I'm very optimistic,
but you sound angry. I don't mean to sound like your therapist.
No, I understand. But wouldn't you? Why isn't everybody about real things? I mean, you want to be upset about real things, but isn't that what drives comedy or art or anything? Is emotion, whether it's anger or joy or love or what are there other emotions? There's got to be more than that. Sadness probably is in there.
Envy.
Hate, envy. Okay. That says something there.
I was just filling in the gaps.
No, I understand. It's just top of mind. It was top of mind. It's hard to watch. It's hard to watch a state, you talked about Sarah Huckabee Sanders. It's hard to watch a state that's like 48th in, infant mortality and child poverty and literacy,
And won't
make a
take
big
Medicaid
deal about
dollars.
a trans girl that wants to play soccer that doesn't.
Precisely, dude. There are huge issues people face in your state. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, former Trump, White House spokesperson who is now the governor of the state of Arkansas. There are real issues your citizens are facing, and yet you're complaining about trans people. You're complaining about CRT. These are not things that will affect their lives in any meaningful, material way, so that you can ignore the other stuff that you're not doing. Because again, and I don't think he's going to talk about this, the solutions to fixing those things involve affecting the bottom line of the people who control and fund people like Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
That happens like once every 5 years there. Like, it's hard to not be angry about people that try and distract from the real things that people face with weaponized nonsense.
I get that. My point is, but then you also turn it into humor.
Sometimes. Sometimes I just turn it into anger. And then sometimes I just turn it into gummies.
Hey,
and late at night,
let's
I just take a
go.
bunch of those. And that helps.
All right.
For those of you watching at home, don't do drugs. Stay in school.
That was a good video. It talked about he talked about a lot of good stuff. He didn't quite talk about what I thought they were going to talk about, or maybe to the extent I wanted them to talk about it. But overall, good video.